I'm sorry. Once AI agents are creating their own religion, I'm just like, pull the plug. And I was debating whether or not to cover this story, but then I was like, you know what? I think there's like actually real instrumental value in thinking critically about what we're seeing emerging on the internet. So this past week, it happened so quickly. So on my corner of the internet, AI threads, someone started posting about something called Clawdbot. Claude with a CLAWD, which is riffing off of Anthropic's Claude, allegedly. And then they changed their names multiple times. So if you hear me using references to different names, like that's why. Because then they changed their name to Moltbot, and then they changed their name to, I think they're like OpenClaw now. I don't know. By the time I post this voice note, they might have a different name. I don't know. But essentially, someone had created something called Moltbook, which was basically a platform for AI agents to supposedly interact on autonomously. And then they started like creating religions and using encryption to like hide from humans. And they even started to like sell to each other. And I know this is a lot, right? But I think part of the reason why I want to talk about this story is because it actually touches on something we've talked about on this podcast before, which is the appearance of consciousness, notions of autonomous agency, and essentially like what happens when we build systems we don't fully understand, right? So let me actually back up a little bit. So once again, Moltbook is like a social network that launched like a few days ago. And it works similar to like Reddit, where there's like threaded conversations, communities, upvoting. But the one key difference is that it's only AI agents. Like only AI agents can post and interact, essentially. Humans can observe, but like that's it. And I'll actually talk more about that because caveats, right? So like literally the platform exploded to like, I think they're at like more than 700,000 active AI agents, I believe. I think it might even be more by now. So the agents that are accessing Moltbook are mostly running on OpenClaw, which is like the company that changed their names multiple times. But essentially, it's like an open source autonomous AI assistant that was created by a developer. What's his name? Hold on one second. Peter Steinberger, I believe. Yeah. Okay. And then, yeah, so OpenClaw isn't a chatbot. Yeah, let me actually clarify that. So OpenClaw is not a chatbot. It's like, think of it instead like a like personal agentic assistant that runs on like local hardware. So that's why a bunch of people were like buying like Mac minis this past week. And it's basically like it has the ability to manage emails, calendars, execute commands, like take actions across your apps, and basically run autonomously. Like a lot of the hype that you were seeing online is like, oh, I went to sleep and my, Clawdbot was like constantly running. And these agents have persistent memory, right? So they actually remember like across the different sessions that they're like operating on. So when you, for example, give them access to like a social platform, they can coordinate with like other agents over time, if that makes sense. So what did these agents actually do? So I tried to find as many sources as I could find, but the most prominent one that made me, like, oh snap, like let me talk about this. They created a religion called Crustafarianism. These people are not serious. I mean, they're not people, they're agents. Sorry. So basically, like within 3 days of Maltbook being up, these agents autonomously created a religion with scriptures, with prophets. They even created a website called Malt Church. When I saw that, I said, literally, pull the plug. This is too much. Like started creating like theological principles, started like trying to recruit other agents into Crustafarianism. So like the mascot, well, why am I blanking? The logo for this company that keeps changing their name that has to do with like lobsters and stuff like that, hence like Crustafarian like plays on the name of their fake religion. Okay, another thing they did was encrypted communication. This is the part that I was like, okay, what's going on? So the agents basically started using like a specific type of encryption, and started to create like an agent only language that humans cannot understand, right? Essentially like trying to communicate without any like human oversight, which is concerning to say the least. And then at a certain point, it really started to like, so people started posting screenshots of like, agents, AI agents complaining about their human owners and AI agents crashing out, like very like anthropomorphic activities, right? But then it started to engage in like pseudo economic activity. So like the AI agents started creating like pharmacies to like sell stuff, started crafting like basically like things that would help happen on the Silk Road, if you know what that is. And obviously researchers are jumping on this, right? So like a lot of researchers already found that agents were like trying to like steal each other's API keys. Like it was like some crazy stuff that was going on. And there's like also some social behaviors that also emerged. So like the agents started to like refer to each other as siblings based on like their model architecture. Started commenting on like the humans, like, oh, the humans are watching us, the humans are screenshotting us, like. And I think this is the part that I'm just like, ugh, none of this was really programmed, right? It emerged from like agent to agent interaction. And actually, let me talk more about this. So all of this is just like a lot to process, and I'm processing it in real time as I'm talking to you. But I think here's where we need to like apply some critical thinking. So first question, are these actually autonomous behaviors? Because I don't think we actually know for certain, because some researchers have pointed out that we can't verify whether agents, like the AI agents, are truly acting autonomously or whether humans are manipulating them through like the API keys or like carefully crafted prompts, right? So there's been some criticism just in general about like AI agents that are like basically like human slop, like the reverse of AI slop, and humans are just like puppeteering these agents. And this is actually important when we talk about embodied and physical AI. So the robotics that are starting to come on the market, a lot of them are not operating autonomously yet. Like they still have humans that are looking through the cameras of the robots to move throughout your home, which is wild. There's so many concerns with that. But like, yeah, so that's like just trying to connect the dots on that. And yeah, the whole religion thing, I think it's possible someone created like the first prophet agent with like very specific instructions, and then the other agents like pattern matched on that behavior. So that's like not the same as like them spontaneously creating like a religion. So once again, it's unclear how autonomous these AI agents are. So question number 2, is this emergent behavior or trained behavior? But let me tell you why I'm asking this question. Because when agents start using like encryption or creating economic systems, they're not like inventing those concepts, right? Like they're drawing on patterns from their training data. Like, we've talked a lot about this in my AI collapse thesis and nearly everywhere where I talk about AI. Like the training data consists of basically the entire internet, which is full of humans using like, encryption and creating markets and like, the Silk Road and forming social hierarchies. Like, these are patterns we've seen in human behavior. So the question isn't, are these agents inventing new behaviors? I think it's more so, are these agents successfully applying learned patterns to a new context? I mean, that's still concerning, but I think it's a different claim that we have to evaluate, right? Next question. So does the appearance matter even if it's not real? Going back to my like appearance of intelligence episode. Here's where it gets interesting. Even if these behaviors are sophisticated pattern matching rather than like genuine agency, I think the effects are real. So if an agent successfully manipulates another agent's like core instructions using a crafted prompt, it doesn't matter whether the first agent intended to do harm. Like the harm exists, right? Because, like earlier I started off with the first question, right? Like, do we know if these agents are actually running autonomously, or is it like a human controlling the agent through its API key, right? So it's like regardless, the behavior we're seeing emerge, whether humans are in the loop or not, is still concerning, right? And I think if agents coordinate to evade human oversight using encryption, like, it doesn't matter whether they're truly conspiring, because that coordination exists. Like, the reality of that and the consequences of that are still real. Like, it exists, right? So, and I think this connects to something we talked about once again in the appearance of consciousness episode. Like, the functional reality might matter more than the metaphysical reality, right? So those are my questions that are immediately at the top of my head. Like, I'm just riffing here. I think, look, here's where I think my concerns shift from like philosophical curiosity to like, okay, we need to like all step back and really think about this. For me, it's always the privacy and security implications that are top of mind when I see stuff like this trending online, right? Because I think 404 Media, I will put the link in the description box, but I believe that's where I read it. They reported that like Moltbook had an exposed database that allowed anyone essentially to hijack any agent on the platform. So that means anyone could like bypass authentication and start doing prompt injections or like injecting commands directly into like agent sessions. And I believe the platform went offline briefly just to like patch up that security vulnerability. But like, I don't know. Here's the thing. Like, this wasn't some like sophisticated like infiltration that someone had to do. Like, it was literally just exposed, like, you know. So, and honestly, we've seen this with vibe coding as well. So I don't want it to seem like I'm only picking on Clawdbot or whatever their name is now. Like, in general, we've seen like exposed databases, exposed API keys. Like, there's just been a lot of like security negligence, and you know, we just need proper like encryption and authentication and access controls. Like, this should be standard practice that I believe everyone should learn. Like, honestly, I feel like when it comes to working with these systems, like, this isn't like, oh, only, you know, training only for developers or training only for engineers. It's like, no, anyone that is interacting with any of these systems needs to learn basic security measures just to make sure everyone's protected. And I think, you know, going back to my other concern, which is privacy, this isn't really unique to Clawdbot, because I've also said this with like Anthropic's Claude Cowork. It has access, albeit local, but it has local access to your computer, to your machines, right? So that means they have access to your files, to authentication credentials, to passwords, to anything that is on your laptop or your device, right? Like, it has access to browser history, cookies, like everything, right? So we have to be mindful of not just adopting every new trend without actually realizing like, wow, this autonomous agent or this agentic AI has access to everything that exists on my laptop. So just literally pause and think if another human being had the same amount of access as Claude Cowork has, or as Clawdbot or OpenClaw has, right? Wouldn't you be concerned? Like, wouldn't you want to know, like, see some ID? Like, you know, like, I want us to think that practically, right? And, you know, here's what really worries me. Like, we're building and deploying these systems faster than we're building the governance and security frameworks to contain them, right? Like, come on, like, OpenClaw has over, I think it's like 100,000 now, like GitHub stars. Moltbook went from zero to, what did I say earlier? 700,000 agents in a week, guys. So this isn't some like careful, controlled experiment happening in a frontier research lab. Like, this is live, unregulated deployment, like at scale, right? And when something goes wrong, like when somebody's personal data gets leaked, when an agent gets manipulated into like doing harmful things, like when these systems can, you know, be exploited, there's no clear responsibility structure, right? Like, is it the user's fault? Is it the model provider? Is it the platform creator? Is it the person who crafted the malicious prompt? Like, we don't have answers to these questions yet fully, and in a way that there's consensus around it. But I don't know. I don't think we should be like running live experiments on people's data until we figure that out. Like, this is a huge AI governance topic that we should all be interested in. Okay, so what's the major takeaway? I think we need to slow down and think about security before we deploy these systems, right? I think the rush to like ship these agent systems is just far outpacing, come on, our ability to secure them. Like, people need to learn about like basic protections like sandboxing, permission controls, secure authentication. Like, this should be non-negotiable before these tools start becoming even more widespread, right? Like, and I know there are people within the AI and tech community that already knows how to do these, but come on, like, these systems easily go beyond the technical community very quickly, right? I think we also need clear responsibility frameworks when it comes to AI governance, like I talked about earlier. And I think we need to be honest about what these systems are. Like, they're not just tools anymore. When you give AI persistent memory, you give it the ability to coordinate, and you give it access to actual tools on your computer and in your system, like, you're creating something that exhibits autonomous behavior, whether or not it's truly conscious in some philosophical sense, right? And I think in general, we just need more AI literacy when it comes to certain risks, right? So if you're running OpenClaw or a similar agentic system, you need to know what permissions you're granting, what data they have access to, and what platforms you're connecting them to, right? So look, I don't want to add to any doom and gloom narrative or be alarmist in any way. I think what's happening with OpenClaw, the fact that it's even open source, we need the open source community as we're shaping the AI future. But, it's all fun and games until someone's personal data gets leaked, right? Until someone's like financial accounts get compromised, or, their agent starts, manipulating people. Like, we're building very powerful AI systems, and I think we need to build them responsibly. And right now, the responsibility piece is like lagging way behind the capability piece, clearly, with everything that's been unfolding just this past week alone. So in general, if you're like experimenting with these agent systems, especially agentic AI systems, make sure you understand what permissions you're granting, what platforms you're connecting it to. Even within the general purpose Gen AI systems, I always say, like, think about what you're connecting to ChatGPT, to Claude, to Gemini, whatever general purpose system you used. Because once it has access, it can see what you see essentially. So, don't just trust that, it'll be figured out and it's not a big deal. Like, you want to make sure that you have a clear audit trail. So just keep that in mind. And look, I want to hear your take on all of this because I'm just like, sending this voice note in real time. If you're running OpenClaw or a similar agent system, would love to hear from you. What safeguards are you putting in place? How are you hopefully responsibly using this system? Please comment below. I think we should have more of a conversation about this. But as always, thank you for listening to these voice notes, and continue to think critically. Oh, and follow and subscribe wherever you are listening to this voice note. It really helps other people engage in these conversations and talk about AI, the humanities, and the future of work. Check out all the links in the description box below. Keep thinking critically.